Hi, my name is Tom Reynolds, and welcome to Next Gen on October 9th, 2020. I'm the president of the Reynolds Group, and I will be your host for the next 45 minutes. Next Gen is a peer network founded 20 years ago to support manufacturing, distribution, and technology companies. Our mission is to help business leaders adjust, leverage, and thrive. My background is manufacturing and software development. I use my experience to do smarketing, which combines sales tactics and marketing deliverables to grow revenue as a chief marketing officer. My marketing partner and good friend is Emma Day. She does SEO to sales, as she said, with a focused financially driven digital marketing formula. Helping me today is Linda Feinholtz. She's also a good friend and does business growth strategy. She'll be managing a lot of the questions for us, but you're welcome just to speak up as well with a raised hand. The speaker today is Robert Johnson. I met her through my musical partner, or my charity partner, Ben Hansen, who runs a wonderful restaurant called Los Gringos. We raised over $1 million with a auction item that is a band and a taco cart with 30 margaritas for 30. And they did a great talk on resilience that really fascinated me, and Ben shared it. And so I asked if Robin would be our speaker. The topic today is resilience, resilient organizations beyond surviving to thriving. With all that's going on, thinking about your associates, where your associates' heads are at, is more important than ever. Developing skills to be more resilient during this time of change will help your company adjust, leverage, and thrive. So with that, I'm going to throw the ball to Robin and take it away.
Thank you. And thank you, Tom, and to Next Gen for having me here. I'm absolutely passionate about this topic of resilience, and also passionate about helping organizations be more humane. We as adults spend most of our life working in one capacity or another, and the more we can help organizations be humane, we are doing good in the world. I'm going to do a quick share screen here and share my PowerPoint with you and go through it, and then have time for some questions at the end. So the resilient organization beyond surviving to thriving, as Tom said. And I come from a manufacturing background. My day job is with Safe Checks. We make high security checks to prevent check fraud. You might have heard of Frank Abagnale from Catch Me If You Can. We work very closely with him. I'm the primary editor of his fraud bulletin. So I totally know about supply chain issues, totally know about having to make a product that's absolutely perfect when it leaves the door, hunting down lost packages with UPS, customer service, and understand all of those manufacturing issues. I'm also in a totally different world, one of the co-directors of the Suzuki Music Program of Los Angeles, and I understand trying to make payroll during a pandemic. So I completely get those sorts of issues that we've all been facing. And I recently, as I mentioned, graduated from the University of Pennsylvania Master of Applied Positive Psychology program, and I'm really happy to share this information with you. And what I'm going to be sharing with you has been taught to the entire United States Army. The Master Resilience Training Program is developed by Karen Rivich and Marty Seligman. That's them in the corner. I don't know if these faces are covering up my screen or not, but at any rate, Martin Seligman and Karen Rivich. And so it's what I'm teaching is good enough for the U.S. Army, tough enough for the U.S. Army. Another, many organizations have used these principles. I'm not going to go huge into this, but this is the Rocky Flats Nuclear Weapons Production Facility near Denver. It's now the Rocky Flats Nature Reserve. And back in the many years ago, horrible protests. The neighbors didn't like it, protesting all the time. Terrible animosity between the workers and the executives. Is raided by the FBI in 1989 and shut down for fraud and other kinds of things. And the workers still had to come to work, but they couldn't do anything. They just had to sit there. Horrible situation. Anyway, the people who came in to clean this thing up and turn it around They were told this is going to take 70 years and $36 billion. Instead, the people who came in used some of the principles that I'm talking about. It took them 6 years, $6 billion, and they ended up 13 times cleaner than the law required. So I'm saying these things so you know that what I'm talking about works, and it works in extremely difficult, challenging situations. And the road we're going to travel today, we're going to talk about defining resilience, why it matters, some building blocks, a wonderful skill called real-time resilience, and then taking those and applying it to organizations, talking about positive emotions, examples of creativity, what's your why, and do your janitors know? Then some questions and answers. And then I have some resources to share with you that I think are really terrific. So resilience is the ability to overcome obstacles, navigate through adversity, and bounce back from challenges, but also to reach out and to grow. And these first three are dealing with from a reactive standpoint. You're reacting to something that has happened to you. The last one, to reach out and grow, is a proactive position where we're asking for help, we're getting resources, and we're growing positively. Why resilience matters is like a tree bending in the wind. Is it going to get totally knocked over and smashed, or is it going to bend, and then when the wind stops blowing, it'll come back up and it'll keep growing? Greater creativity, enhance areas of strength, reduce stress and anxiety. And the other thing that's really important here is resilience can help us undo things that we had no control over in our childhood. And I'm sure all of us have those things that we deal with. What's absolutely crucial to know is that resilience is a buildable skill. It's not something you're either born with it or you weren't. It's not a light switch that's on or off. It is a skill that everyone has to one degree or another. And no matter what your resilience level is, your resilience quotient, as Karen says, it can be increased. So, and this is Karen in the corner here. And a lot of what I'm talking about today comes from her research in her book, The Resilience Factor. But there's been tons of information on resilience. But a lot of this information I'm taking from her book, which she wrote. I consider her the queen of resilience. So anyway, so first of all, we have a foundation that deals with emotion regulation, impulse control, optimism, causal analysis, empathy, self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is the concept that we believe that we can do something. We have the notion, like the little engine that could, yes, I can, yes, I can. That self-efficacy is believing that we can do what we think we want to do. And then reaching out, and that was an element that we talked about just a minute ago. On top of this foundation, we have some skills that are these buildable skills that I mentioned. ABC, ATC, this deals with some activating event. We have beliefs about that event and some consequences, emotional consequences and other consequences of that. Thinking traps, iceberg beliefs, challenging beliefs, having perspective, a skill of calming and focusing, and then this skill called real-time resilience that we'll get into in greater depth in just a moment. Above all of this foundation and this layer of skills that we can grow is what Karen refers to as protective factors. What are things that we have around us or that we can acquire that can protect our resilience, including our biology, self-awareness, self-regulation, mental agility, optimism, self-efficacy, again, connections, and positive institutions. Now you'll notice that some of these things are repeated in the foundation and the skills, and they're also protective factors. And some of these elements are actually are in a cycle, where an upward spiral, where if you have optimism, you can develop things that help you get more optimism. If you have self-efficacy, you can do things where you get more self-efficacy. So they're intertwined and interrelated. So there we have the building blocks and protective factors of resilience. Now we're going to take a minute and talk about this one element here called real-time resilience. Is my favorite skill to develop. And real-time resilience, the purpose is to immediately challenge and to change these automatic counterproductive thoughts and beliefs that bring us down into depression, down into despair, down into anxiety, and a sense of hopelessness. And the real-time resilience skills are several strategies: evidence, reframing the situation, planning, having a sense of control, using our strengths, especially our signature strengths. And Karen laid this out as having some sentence starters. It's really good to have these sentence starters tucked in your hip pocket, because when a challenge hits you, your mind will suddenly fly away. And if you have these sentence starters, it's something to grab onto to then challenge whatever is coming at you. For example, on evidence, for example, with me, some of these automatic negative thoughts are, "You're such an idiot," or, "Oh, I'm such a mess," those kinds of things. So for me, if this thought, "Oh, I'm such an idiot," for evidence, I could say, "That's not true because I produced Frank Abagnale's fraud bulletin. That's not true because I organized the Messiah sing-along for 1,000 people." There are things that I can say where I can say legitimately, it's not true that I'm an idiot. Reframing, a better way to look at this, or more helpful way to look at this is blah, blah, blah. Planning, if X happens, I will Y. The control, and there's a lot of talk about, we don't have control over things. Things are out of our control. But yet, oftentimes, there are a few things. We can't control everything, but there are some things we can control. And if any of you know the Serenity Prayer, knowing what we can control and what we can't control, and then controlling the things that we can, and then using our character strengths. So if we had more time and would do breakout rooms or things, here's an exercise that I will do with people in trying out one of these skills. Now, and to try out, that's not true. This is one of the exercises we did in class what are some of these thoughts we always think of? Well, what are some sentences that we can come up with to challenge them? The thing that's really important is whatever sentence you come up with, the evidence has to be accurate, specific, and vivid, or it won't be powerful enough to challenge and overcome and change these counterproductive thoughts. So that's really important. Now, here are some mistakes that people make when they are trying to implement and learn real-time resilience. First of all, Pollyanna optimism. And sometimes people in positive psychology or well-being will be accused of being Pollyannas. We just have our heads in the clouds. And in reality, that kind of optimism doesn't work. What works is realistic optimism, being accurate. And oftentimes people are inaccurate in a negative direction. The things are actually better than they think. And so the inaccuracy isn't on the side of optimism, it's on the side of pessimism. So nonetheless, whatever we choose needs to be realistic. As oftentimes there will be a grain of truth in that negative thought that comes at us. There's a grain of truth in it. And if we just simply dismiss it, then deep inside we will know that grain of truth. And again, it will make our counter not be strong enough to challenge it. The blame game, oftentimes we either tend to blame ourselves for everything, or we tend to blame everybody else for everything. Well, simply changing the direction that your finger is pointing isn't an answer to challenging and smashing down those negative thoughts. So having a more realistic viewpoint, some of it was my fault, some of it was circumstances' faults, but simply changing the direction of your finger isn't sufficient to counter those negative thoughts. And the last one is minimizing the problem as a way of making yourself feel better. So minimizing the problem so you feel better really isn't addressing the negative thought, and that negative thought is just going to keep coming back at you. So how do we take these concepts and put them into resilience in organizations? Well, first of all, are there counterproductive thoughts and beliefs that we hold about our organizations? Do you sometimes say, man, what a loser organization, or, everyone here is just a bunch of idiots? Do you have these negative viewpoints about your organization? And that also can bring you down. It can bring your organization down. Do you have a deficit-based approach to your organization rather than a strengths-based approach? Do you continually look for problems to fix without looking for your strengths to build on? Now, it's absolutely true. You have to look at problems, you have to address them, you have to fix them. But if that is what you're always doing and only doing, that can really put you into a downer framework where you're not as creative, not as flexible. Think of it, in fact, in my other presentation, I probably should have left it in this one, but I had a picture of like pulling weeds. You absolutely need to pull weeds. But if you're only pulling weeds, how fun is that? At some point, you need to take the harvest and make a beautiful meal out of it. And that's the difference between being only deficit-based or only problem-oriented with being solution-oriented and being strengths-based. So extremely important for your organizations. This leads me to I'm going to talk about two core elements today. And the first one is broaden and build. This is an extremely important theory that Barbara Fredrickson invented. And she began thinking many decades ago, why do we have positive emotions? We know from an evolutionary standpoint why we have negative emotions to help us survive, but why do we have positive emotions? What good do they do? And what she found was that having positive emotions helps us to have a broader, she calls it broaden and build. It broadens our perspective so we can be more creative and more flexible. And it was really cool. They did these tests where they would have someone be on the computer and you could track their eye movements. And they put them into a state of negativity, into a state of positivity, and they would do the test. Then they'd put them into a state of negativity. And literally their field of vision would literally narrow like this. And their field of vision would get very narrow. So they literally could not even see other choices and other options. And so that is why positive emotions are so important, and cultivating and developing positive emotions is so important, because it literally physiologically broadens our perspective. And then with a broader perspective, we can build our resources, our social resources, our financial resources, our intellectual resources, etc. We broaden and then we build. And then we have this reservoir that we can hold on to and dip into when we hit a rough patch like we're all hitting right now. And here's some examples of broaden and build. This is Los Gringos, and Tom talked about him. And Los Gringos was a sit-down restaurant. Overnight, they got shut down. And Brent has been absolutely the most amazing examples of creativity. And one of the things they did, here's this little breezeway. Can you see my cursor on the screen when I go like this? Okay, so here's a breezeway. It's not used. This is the wall of one business. These businesses are either closed or they're not being used very much because of COVID. So Bent goes, hey, there's a breezeway. Why don't we turn it into this fun eating area? And so then people could come. They can't come inside, but they can come here and be outside, and they can have a place to sit down instead of only just being able to drive up. So just amazing creativity. The next one you're going to love. I did not put any pictures on this one. I thought the words would suffice. So a strip club in Houston reinvented itself, and they had physically distanced dancers, and they performed their little in a tent outside. They'd perform, and after 2 songs, the drivers would have to go. I suppose they could get in line again, but at any rate, the notion is that if a Mexican restaurant and a strip club can be innovative enough and creative enough to find solutions to their business problems during COVID, I have complete confidence that you can too. And your least competent employee, Dumb and Dumber, your least competent employee has a brain that is more powerful than the world's largest computer. And you can tap into that power through broaden and build using positive emotions. So what are some ways we bring positivity into our organizations? A couple of great examples. Milam, Connect, and Warner, they're a great a tax and accounting firm in Glendale. And most of their people have been working from home 4 months. They have about 35 employees, and twice a week they'll get on and they have a question of the week. And they just rapid fire answer one of these questions. What's your favorite cereal? Everybody will go around and just say what's the name of their favorite cereal is. Or what celebrity did you have a crush on as a teenager? These silly questions, everyone laughs, gets to know each other. And my friend who works there said it only takes about 15 minutes. So 15 minutes, a couple of times a week, and they are generating cohesion, they're generating camaraderie, they're generating some positive moments and really valuable. The second one is Simplot. Simplot, I assume you've heard of them, but they're a great big agricultural firm in Idaho, in Boise. I grew up in Boise. And if you don't know them, I'm sure you've eaten their food. They make McDonald's French fries. Well, my brother-in-law got hired as their marketing, the vice president of marketing. He doesn't work for them anymore, but he worked for them for some time. And the first week that he was hired, he went to every single shift in the plant where they were making French fries and everything else to meet the workers. Well, it's a 24/7 plant. So that meant he would go down there at 3 in the morning or at 5 in the morning or 10 o'clock at night or midnight. Every single shift for a week, he went and met with all these people. They told him that it was the first time ever that any executive had set foot in their shift. And he was stunned. He just took it as a matter of course that you go down and you meet your employees. And so for them, that was a huge moment of positivity that an executive would come down and see what they actually do. I'm now going to move on to what's your why. This is the other thing that's absolutely crucial for organization is what is your why? And a few weeks ago, I heard the most amazing presentation by the president of WD-40. The company is called WD-40. They make WD-40, and it's a family-owned organization, been around for generations. You can see by the pictures down there. And here I have my WD-40 right here. And he said, what are we? We're not just oil in a can. We solve problems. We make it so that a family can go on vacation, if something got stuck. We make it so that companies can run better. And he went on and on and on for like a half an hour on their why. He said, we're not just oil in a can. We make people's lives better. We make families' lives better. It was so inspiring. And I was stunned. WD-40, who would think that their why is huge? And that's probably the reason why they have these really old pictures and they're still in business that many decades later. So what's your why? And do your janitors know your why? Now I'm going to see if I can make this smaller. Oh, there we go. Okay. So lore has it that President Kennedy, he went to Cape Canaveral and he ran, and we know where they're building the rocket to go to the moon, and he ran into a janitor. And he asked the janitor, oh, what do you do here? And the janitor says, me, I'm helping put a man on the moon. So the janitor wasn't just sweeping the floor. He was helping put a man on the moon. And this picture over here, this is a picture of a janitor in hospital. They did multiple amazing studies and interviewing the staff and the workers at hospitals. And to what degree was it a job, I just cleaned the floors, or was it a calling? And in the hospitals where it was a calling, there was lower infection and lower death rates. Now, we can't say it was causal, it caused it, because there might be other things influencing that. Well, I'm sure there were, but there was definitely a correlation between was it a calling or a job. And this was so moving, I put it in here. This is a staff member assigned to clean up the vomit and the excrement in the oncology ward when people come in for chemotherapy. And she said, my job is equally important to the physician. I help these people feel human. At their lowest and most vulnerable point, I help them maintain their dignity. My role is crucial to the healing process. This is a janitor who knew her why and knew the why of their organization. And so if your employees, you're down to the janitor, if they know your why, then that is how you can build resilience in your organizations. So here's some resources. The resilience factor I told you about, positive leadership. Here is let's see if I can get the faces back up here. There we go. So here is my book of positive leadership, is my copy. This is my Bible for organizations. Cannot say enough good things. If you buy this and read it and implement it, it's not that long. See, it's not a very thick book. See, it's a thin book. It will absolutely revolutionize your life and your organization. Jane Dutton, this is by Kim Cameron. Anything by Kim Cameron is fabulous. Jane Dutton and Kim work very close together, energize your workplace, tons of stuff about having energy units in your organization, and then Positivity by Barbara Fredrickson. David Cooperrider is a huge name in the world of organizational behavior and organizational development. The other thing is, and these are two organizations I only recently have learned about. I have no monetary interaction with them. I'm just sharing good resources. One is called Better Up. And one of our class colleagues actually got a job with Better Up, and they offer coaching to organizations. So if your employees need coaching on how to be more resilient, how to be more like a better employee, they offer coaching, and it's really a tremendous model, very creative, innovative model. And then this company here is called Achieve Engagement. And what they completely focus on is, are your employees engaged at work? And if you look at the stats, employees are not engaged, and they're not only not engaged, many of them are actively disengaged. And what a waste of resources. So their whole focus, and they have lots of like webinars. In fact, it was on his webinar that I heard the WD-40 president speak, and other people like that. So these are really great organizations just to know about. So I will now, I'll stop my share for a minute here, and we have some time to see if you have any questions.
Great job.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Let's start with some questions. We can all go live, or if we've got some chats.
Yes, John.
I got kind of a quick question. So you're talking about, things that maybe organizations or people within can do immediately. So you find yourself in a very stressful situation, something completely unexpected happens during the day in the normal course of work. Do you have a suggestion on maybe just one or two tactics someone could just do immediately to sort of break, freeze? What are those things they could think about to sort of get out of that situation and reframe what's happening?
Yeah, one of the things I didn't talk about, but in the skills, it's called calming and focusing, and they call that a fast skill. So real-time resilience is a fast skill because you can use it right there in the moment. And calming and focusing, and when your brain is flooded with stress and anxiety because something just hit you, it's really hard for your brain to think. So if you can do a couple of things just to calm, like just say, I'm going to take 3 breaths and breathe in through your stomach. These are things that Karen taught us. You breathe into your stomach, fill up your belly. Even just 3 breaths to bring some blood back to your brain. That can help. Another thing that one of our assistant instructors taught us about is just like a 5-second meditation. And you take your palm and you just go around your palm and you just go up like this, breathing each time. And then circle your palm. It takes like 5 seconds. And begin anything to calm your brain down to begin with. And that's why Karen had these sentence starters. A sentence starter, an analogy I have used with myself is remembering back to when my children were taught swimming lessons. and watching my grandchildren be taught swimming lessons. One of the first skills that the instructor will teach them is to jump in and immediately swim to the side of the pool and hold on to the edge of the pool. And they do that over and over and over again until it becomes reflective. And the reason why, the instructor told me the reason why, is if you're at a public pool and you accidentally get knocked in, you instinctively will go to the edge instead of just sinking and flailing about and drowning. You instinctively go to the edge. And so for me, these sentence starters become instinctive. So it's like I get knocked in the pool, then I grab to the edge, and these sentence starters will come to my head. So I will say, when I say, "You're such an idiot," that's not true. that thought will come to my head. So I will say that. Find ways to create your edge of the pool and then go to it.
Other questions?
I really love all of the material that you shared, and I'm really looking forward to going in and diving in even more deeply. There's a couple of techniques I learned over the years that are just, they may actually be in here. And one of them is using the phrase "a part of me" when I'm working with clients where they say "I'm," and whatever follows that sentence is as if every aspect of their identity, like cement, is whatever comes next. And so what I teach them is to say, every time you say the word "I," pause, re-say the sentence with the phrase "a part of me." And they notice how they just relax. So even when it's like, I can't figure this out, it's like, okay, say it again. A part of me can't figure this out, which just opens up, that broadens possibilities into, well, the other parts of me maybe can as well.
That's a great idea. Great idea.
There's another element that I've just noticed for myself, and it's around this idea of resilience, which is kindness to ourselves. It's like, if I'm really frustrated, I acknowledge that I deal with it within 3 days, 2 days, 1 day, 6 hours instead of months. Just to self-acknowledge that we are developing resilience and we can feel like something's impossible or high stress, and shorten the time before we're ready to move into resilience, and acknowledge ourselves for that, for shortening reaction time and so on.
Absolutely.
So one of the people who couldn't make it today sent me a question, and his question was, what is the difference between resilience and agility? And I had no idea how to answer that question. Between
resilience and agility?
Yeah.
Well, I believe that I would say that agility is part of resilience. I would say that they're intertwined. Resilience, at least, the technical definition is being able to navigate through, being able to bounce back, be able to reach out. Agility helps you to be able to do that. So I would say that agility is being able to move quickly around. I think it's both. For example, if you think of a tree blowing in the wind, it's very resilient in that it's not getting uprooted, but it might not be really agile right then. But when the wind stops, I guess that's not a very good analogy. Forget that analogy. Anyway, but yeah.
One's more physical than the other, right? I mean, one is mental, one's more physical, or no?
Resilience, of everything you described, Robin, resilience is the state, and agility is one of the techniques in that state.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Exactly. I think agility is the ability to adapt quickly and react quickly.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the resilience is to take what storms come your way.
Yeah. The other thing too, I was saying, I mentioned this at the beginning, and I will reemphasize it, is that it's not an on-off switch. It's a muscle that can be developed, and also to give credit for our attempts in that direction. For example, and then I just had thought of this analogy, created this analogy. I like to think in metaphors a few days ago. Is that when you go to the gym, when you get to the gym, you're lifting weights, right? You're lifting weights. But before you get to the gym, you have to, put on your gym clothes, put on your shoes, get in the car, drive there. Those are all things that you're doing before you even actually start lifting weights. So for example, well, I'm teaching through our church, I'm teaching this pilot program on emotional resilience. And we have these action things we do and the follow-up and stuff. And people say, oh, well, I only thought about it. I didn't do it as I was gonna do, but I thought about it and I did it a little bit. And they're discounting that, like, oh, that's not very good. I said, no. That's good. That's putting on your gym shorts. That's putting on your tennis shoes. That's getting in the car. All of these attempts to do it, even thinking about it, is going to change your behavior, and that's really, really valuable. Yeah. So I see we're just about out of time. Can I share one more thing with you real quickly?
Sure.
At the end here, I have one more last screen that I'm going to share. And let me think. There we go. So this is, I love this. And Kim Cameron talks about this a lot. It's called the heliotropic effect. And this is a bush outside of my duplex. And you will notice that all the leaves are facing outward. None of the leaves are facing toward the wall. And that is called the heliotropic effect. And all plants and all living things have this tendency to move and grow and move toward light. And I believe that as human beings, as people, we have that as well, that we gravitate toward people who exude light, who exude well-being, who exude enthusiasm and encouragement and energy. And so I would just hope that each of us can manifest that heliotropic effect and be light for other people, especially in our workplaces, since we spend so much of our waking hours in work. And so I'll just say again, thank you very much to Tom and NextGen for allowing me to share these wonderful concepts with you.
It's really great, Robin. You fulfilled my mission, was to talk about these things and encourage people during a time when maybe we need a little extra encouragement. Are there any other questions really quickly that people want to ask? So I don't see a hand going up. So with that, I'm going to say have a fabulous weekend. Next week, our speaker is going to be on labor law, and that keeps changing in California. So if you have time to hear Cindy Flynn, she's a very good speaker, and she'll run through some of the issues that are going on there. So have a fabulous weekend. Thank you all, and
take care, everyone.
see you next time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.